The money forms a significant chunk of the $50 billion in new loans finalized by Group of 7 advanced economies, well, bandit economies, I would say. Thursday, December 12th, 2024, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Well, today we're going to look at how the U.S. government is continuing to push de-dollarization. And of course, they're not doing it out in the open and saying we want to de-dollarize, but their actions are as good as. And yes, they've done something with the frozen Russian assets that I think is going to continue to wake the world up, that their reserves with the United States and Western Europe, they're not safe. And we're going to couple that with a recent article by Jan Neuenhaus, a gold analyst, and how a lot of countries are repatriating gold from the New York Fed and the Bank of England in London. So before we get deeper into the story, I just wanted to thank all of you today because according to YouTube, as you can see here, I got this message this morning, London time, of course. It says, "Happy anniversary on YouTube. You've given the world 9 years of videos. Thank you." Well, yeah, and I like to thank you because if you weren't interested in listening to me, I wouldn't be here after 9 years. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I started, of course, 0 subscribers, and I'm, well, not me, but we are short, the community, as one of the longtime followers has always said. This is a community. We're short, about 300 subscribers short of 120,000. So maybe we'll get to 120,000 by the end of the year. But as I've said many times, that's not that important for me. The important thing for me is to create the best content possible to add some value to your way of thinking every day. I make a video almost every day, and yes, and we're almost up to also 38 million views, which is quite amazing. I never thought that would happen. So thanks again. So let's get back to the U.S. and the Biden administration, and in particular, Ms. Yellen, Janet Yellen, who once said that unwinding the Fed's balance sheet was going to be like watching paint dry. And then a few years later, of course, the whole system exploded in 2019, 2020. 2019, the repo crisis started. They had to start QE again, not QE again. But now she's doing something even more ridiculous, in my opinion, and I'm going to explain to you why. Because some people might be thinking, well, Russia deserves to have its assets frozen because it invaded an independent country. And I'm not going to go into the Ukraine history of the last 20 years. Here, I'm going to talk more about what's happening now. And I'm going to reference this book. You might wonder why. Why are you going to talk about the Bank for International Settlements or the Tower of Basel, which I highly recommend? Well, because it's related to this. So let's get to the story here of this latest move by the U.S. and the Europeans are doing the same thing. This is part of a $50 billion loan through the World Bank, because Zelensky needs more and more billions, right? Every month he needs 20 billion, 60 billion, 100 billion here and there. You know, it's coming up to $1 trillion. You kind of wonder if a lot of those funds are flowing into BlackRock and other such financial institutions, right? laundromat comes to mind. But even the publication Barron's in the U.S. is talking about it. So it says U.S. disburses 20 billion Ukraine loan backed by profits from Russian assets. Well, they're not really profits. They're income, because most of the Russian assets or reserves are held in government bonds. And government bonds, they pay an income or a coupon. So that headline there already is misleading, because it feels like, oh, it's okay to take the profits. No, it's the income. It's like someone stealing a house that you rent, right? They come and they take over your house, and then they rent it to someone, and they take the rent from the tenant, and they say, oh, it's okay because it's just a profit. So what does Barron say? Well, it says the United States announced Tuesday that it has disbursed a 20 billion loan for Ukraine backed by proceeds earned on frozen Russian assets as part of a 50 billion G7 support package. And you might think, well, they've frozen or stolen, as the Russians call it, and I think they're right, and we're going to come to that in a minute. They've already done it, 300 billion. Why is this any different? Well, because they're actually using it. I know it's in a indirect way for now, because they've backed this loan with those assets, but they're going to pay the World Bank the interest on those loans, because the World Bank is going to charge them with income from the frozen or stolen assets. And I mean, I actually don't have to do this. It is stolen. The money forms a significant chunk of the 50 billion in new loans finalized by Group of 7 advanced economies, well, bandit economies, I would say, in October, aimed at helping Kiev as it struggles to fight back against Moscow's ongoing invasion. The funds come at a crucial juncture for Kiev as questions swirl over the future of its U.S. backing once President Joe Biden hands over power to Donald Trump in January. I don't know if you remember, I'm old enough to remember that we used to call it Chicken Kiev, not Kiev. That's why I make sure to say Kiev. And this is the response from the Russians, and it's in Barron's a day later. It came out yesterday. Moscow says U.S. loan to Kiev backed by frozen Russian assets theft. And they put it in brackets. But there's no way about it, Barron's. It is theft. Of course, Barron's is not going to say it's real theft, because they're part of the globalist cabal. It's a mainstream publication, but at least they're talking about it. Russia on Wednesday decided the U.S. Disbursing a 20 billion loan to Ukraine backed by frozen Russian assets as theft, vowing retaliation. The U.S. Announced a day earlier that it would disburse the loan as part of a 50 billion G7 support package. Moscow's foreign ministry called the move banal theft and will not go unanswered, saying that Russia had sufficient capacity and leverage to retaliate it by seizing Western assets under its jurisdiction. So, Tower of Basel, what's this got to do with what's going on today? Well, back during World War II, and even at the outset of World War II, and even a little bit before, in 1938, the Germans started moving. They invaded Czechoslovakia in 1938. They stole Czechoslovak gold that was at the Bank of England. It was in the Bank of England in the BIS's account, Bank for International Settlements account, and it was the BIS accepted and switch the funds from the Czech account into the German account. And you would have thought that the BIS during World War II, they would have stopped dealing with the Germans and the Japanese. I'm not sure if the Japanese were involved yet in the BIS, but all throughout World War II, and you can read it in this book, the Western banks, central banks, all the central banks of Europe that were part of the BIS, and the US, the Fed wasn't part of it yet, but the head of the BIS was an American banker. They did business with the Germans. So it's amazing, right, that we're supposedly fighting an existential war to save the world from fascism, while at the same time both sides were doing business together. And why is that? Well, because as the first president of the BIS says here, and this is a quote from Gates Magara, the first president of the Bank for International Settlements, 1931. He was an American banker. And the deal with the BIS, and I recommend you watch, I have a playlist for the BIS. There's a lot more information about it. But the deal with them is that when they started out, the U.S. was not part of the League of Nations. It's a League of Nations institution. It was created through international treaty in 1930. So the way the Americans went around it was that it was J.P. Morgan, Chase, and the big New York, Chicago banks that bought into the BIS. So the Fed couldn't be involved. And then it was the major European banks like the Reichsbank, the Bank of France, Bank of England, Bank of Italy, and the Dutch National Bank that created this bank. They all put money down, gold, of course, and they were all private, the central banks at the time, and I'd say they're still privately controlled now. But what did Gates Magara say? The bank is completely removed from any governmental or political control. So there you go. That's why I think it's really significant now that I think it really shows that there is a real conflict between the West and the US and Russia and the other part of the world. You might want to call it the global South or BRICS. Some of you might think, no, it's all by design. It could kind of be, but we've seen that recently the BIS has stopped working with BRICS in their Enbridge project. So, yeah, maybe we've got a real division. And what I'm trying to say here, that even in times of war, that's the last thing you do is steal other countries' reserves. And we're not even officially or technically or legally at war with Russia. It's more of a proxy war. So that's why I think this is a bad move. But the rest of the world sees this. And it's another reason why gold is being repatriated in big amounts and big proportions from the West. And by the West, I mean the Bank of England and the New York Fed. And this is, of course, a holdover from the British Empire period in the 19th and early 20th century. London was the center of trade and finance. So a lot of the gold was kept here. The gold didn't really move. It was just to settle things because, that's how it worked. And then with the end of World War II, things shifted a lot more to New York, but London's still a center for gold trading up until now, because according to Jan Neuenhuis, the share of global official gold reserves not stored at the Federal Reserve Bank in New York and the Bank of England in London has reached 78% in 2024 from 51% in 1972. So that means that, yeah, there's only 22% of official reserves being held at the Bank of England and at the New York Fed. And I think with what's going on now vis-a-vis Russia, that's gonna continue to accelerate. And basically, that's a run on Bank of England and the Fed. And what that's going to do, that's going to decrease the power of the paper market, because the less physical gold you have, the less you can leverage and lease that gold to the bullion banks and other actors to keep gold suppressed, or to make gold volatile so that the public is scared to invest in gold. And that's the last thing the powers that be want. And that's why I keep telling people, and I've been telling friends, families, and colleagues ever since, just a few months after I actually bought my first gold coins in '02, and I've been telling them, you need to buy the physical, because I could see, because I worked in the markets already. By then, I'd been working in the markets for almost 15 years, and I could see that this market was heavily manipulated, and I found out why it was heavily manipulated thanks to people like Bill Murphy from GATA, which I highly recommend as well, GATA.org. So why does it matter that we get physical, not just gold, but silver? Well, because it drains the gold from the banksters. And I know you or me buying an ounce or two of gold or 100 ounces of silver isn't much, but if you multiply that by thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, millions, that makes a huge difference. And I think eventually it will. But right now, the people that know this are the big sovereign central banks from the rest of the world, and they're doing it. They've been accumulating gold hand over fist for the last 3 years, 22, 23, 24, and they're going to continue to do so, in my opinion, especially with the pronouncements that President-elect Trump has made. Very aggressive pronouncements. I know he might be setting things up to negotiate, but he's been quite aggressive, saying, you don't use the dollar, I'm going to, put tariffs of 100% on you, on your country, or something maybe even worse. So there you go. And as you can see, I've been doing this for 9 years, and I've been, since that time, talking about how important gold is. And many of you have asked me, how can I get gold? And the purpose of this channel was not to sell gold, but what I tell people is that do your homework, find the best, most reputable dealer out there that's been in business a long time. Or you can also use my affiliates. They are dealers that I trust 100%. Here in the UK, it's Gold Investments. They've been in business since 1981. It's a family-run business. I started dealing with them in 2002. And in the US, there's Andy Scheckman at Miles Franklin. Him and his dad have been in business since 1989. And they're one of the registered or certified precious metals dealer that deal directly with the US Mint. So if you want to find out more about them, all the details are below in the description. And you can call them and ask for help. They'll give you advice, and tell them that I sent you there, Mario or Monaco64. So let's quickly wrap up here today. Of course, with a browse at where the markets are. It's 8:39 a.m. London time. Gold right now is at 27.16. It's down about just under $2. So not much move here. The high's been 26, and actually the low is 26.98. So we did drop below 2,700 overnight. Silver actually is doing quite well today. The last couple of days it kind of slowed down, but right now it's up 36 cents at 32.23, up 1%. The Dow futures down 100. NASDAQ 100 is down 42. And I saw that the NASDAQ composite closed above 20,000 for the first time. Yeah, the Fed needs to cut rates, right? I'm being sarcastic, but they probably will next week. And I'm going to talk about that anyway soon. S&P 500 futures down about 10 points. The currencies are pretty steady. What about crude oil? Well, I've noticed that WTI now is back above 70, which is fairly significant, I would say. We're at 70.30. It's up about 0.5%. High-grade copper is up just under 1%. And let's quickly check the bond markets. Start with the U.S. 10-year yield. Well, that's picked up. It's almost back to 4.30. So they're having problems with inflationary pressures. We're at 4.29.5, up another 2 basis points. And let's have a look at the gilt. The gilt market seems to be turning lower, the prices, which means yields are going to probably keep picking up, which isn't a good thing. 10-year yield is up another 8 basis points at 4.40. So, the bond market's starting to look a little bit shaky. I'm going to cover that as well soon. So keep that in mind. And with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.